quite a long time, Robert, since the last album. Why has it been so long?
We've been involved in a lot of things. We've been coming to a lot of conclusions and decisions and starting the record company off, you know. We also got mixed up in quite a gargantuous film, you know, so all these things lead up to, you know, time is swallowed by every move, you know.
Yeah.
We've had a disappointing album. We've had a fairly long delay in following up that album. I don't think anybody quite knew what to expect in the run-up to Physical Graffiti. Robert Plant talked it up quite preposterously, telling one interviewer that they were creating their equivalent of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony.
Part of the excitement was you never knew what to expect. You didn't know whether they were going to go for a distinctive direction, go all over the place. What were they going to do? And the fact that it was a double album made it even more interesting, because everyone was wondering, how are they going to achieve this? What are they going to do on a double album? This is going to be amazing.
I had no idea it was going to be a double album. I thought we were just going to cut an album. We cut 9 songs. In those days, you'd only get 20 minutes a side on vinyl. It's obviously 10 years before CDs. And 9 songs, especially when you have songs like In My Time of Dying and Kashmir that were so long, you couldn't fit more than that on. I've read some reviews about Physical Graffiti where they think there's some filler in there, and I don't know where they're coming from on this. In those days, before CDs, we could get 20 minutes on a side of an album. So that limits an album to 40 minutes. A double album is 80 minutes. Well, that's about the size of one CD that we have right now. So it certainly wasn't out of the question to have that much music, and especially if I was surprised because I didn't know that they were going for a double album, but I think it all works well.
It was just beautifully sequenced, you know, it had highs and lows, and you travelled that journey with them over 4 sides, and I think that was what was so good about it. You know, there was a journey to be had with that album, and by the end of it, you were breathless. You know, you'd been part of their world, and it doesn't work like that anymore with CD. I think the fact that it was 4 vinyls with 4 very different contexts going on you know, each side made it such a journey. It had every colour of the Zeppelin spectrum, you know, which is what they wanted to achieve with it.
For me, Physical Graffiti is the best album that Led Zeppelin ever made. For me, it's the greatest album ever made. For me, if you had to choose one album, which is very difficult for Led Zeppelin because they've all got so much to offer, if somebody said you have one album, that would be the one, apart from cheating and taking a box set. If you had to choose just the one, that would be the one, because I think that encompasses everything about Led Zeppelin, from folk to country rock to blues to heaviness to funk and soul. They crossed the spectrum. There's a bit of prog in there as well. So realistically, this was an album that took them across the entire spectrum of what they could do and do brilliantly.
Physical Graffiti inevitably made it to #1 on both sides of the Atlantic. From the typically iconic cover featuring St Mark's Place in Greenwich Village, later to feature in the Rolling Stones video for Waiting on a Friend, to the sheer wealth of material being offered, the album marked a fitting culmination to the band's career so far. Yet, despite it being an undeniable leap forward for Led Zeppelin, a good deal of the album's tracks had been laid down in sessions for previous work. 6 of the songs on Graffiti had emerged during the recording of Led Zeppelin III, Led Zeppelin IV and Houses of the Holy. To fully examine the origins of Physical Graffiti, it becomes necessary to turn the clock back 5 years to July 1970 and the recording of the band's 3rd album. Led Zeppelin III had been assembled at Island Studios and had garnered mixed reactions due to the group's heavily acoustic leanings. Highly evident on tracks like Friends, Gallows Pole and Tangerine, this acoustic streak would also run through a 2-minute oddity that was left off the album. It was a short instrumental called Bran We Are, which would resurface half a decade later, an eclectic addition to side 3 of Physical Graffiti.
Bronio is a very acoustic, genteel instrumental. It only lasts 2 minutes 6 seconds. It's the shortest Led Zeppelin studio recording ever released. It was left over from the recordings for Led Zeppelin 3. So it's comparatively quite old. It goes back 2 or 3 albums, but never fitted on Led Zeppelin 3. They couldn't find a way of putting it in there, but resurrected it for Physical Graffiti. And it is a funny little interlude, but it's nice to have it there. It's better to have it there than not to have it there, and I think it's appreciated almost as a break and a chance just to sort of relax a little bit for 2 minutes.
I think there was always plans to use it. I mean, in Zeppelin, when they got to an end of album, it got to a point where they thought, oh, we haven't used that, but maybe we should do. And Physical Graffiti was the right time to go back and look at those tracks that hadn't quite made it before. It wasn't a case of the tracks weren't up to scratch. I think it was just the fact that the quality of other tracks, had taken precedence. So I think something like Bran fits into that scope, and it was good to see it eventually used.
While only one track had been left over from Led Zeppelin 3, future sessions would see the band amassing a great deal more material that would find its way onto Physical Graffiti. December 1971 saw work begin on the band's 4th album. Night Flight, the opening track to side 4 on Physical Graffiti, was recorded during these sessions.
I received a message from my brother across the water. He sat laughing as he wrote the end inside. So I said goodbye to all my friends and packed my hopes inside a matchbox, 'cause I know it's time to fly. Oh, yeah, come on, meet me in the morning. Meet me in the middle of the night.
Night Flight was almost a jam. It's almost as if they're not quite certain when they started out playing the track where it was going to end up. And so it starts off with a very poppy, light feel, and then gets a lot harder and tougher. And of course the lyrics are about someone dodging the draft in America, which again is a different sort of proposition for Zeppelin to get involved with lyrically. So it's a bit of a weird track in a way, but again it actually showcases Zeppelin's ability to put different styles on the same song and make them flow.
Also recorded during the 4th album sessions was Boogie With Stu, a track which, when later included on Physical Graffiti, would see Led Zeppelin run into trouble with their songwriting credits.
Boogie With Stu came about because Ian Stewart, the Rolling Stones keyboard player and tour manager, had come down with the Stones mobile when Zeppelin were recording Led Zeppelin 4. They recorded and they got into a jam session with him. And it was based around a song called "In My Head" by Richie Valens.
They'd run into various problems over songwriting credits. And, I think on Boogie With Stu, they wanted to do the right thing.
It caused great controversy because on the songwriting credits, it's got Mrs. Valens down there, Richie Valens' mother.